what exactly is democracy? In a democracy, citizens can have any opinion they want to have. They can express any opinion they want in public whenever they care to express it, including through mass media. All of these things are true in every free country in any period, always. These are not just features of democracy, these are prerequisites for democracy. So with that in mind, you should know about a political party in Ukraine called Opposition Platform for Life. Over the weekend, the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, banned that party. So if all of these details seem shocking to you, if this is not the Zelensky you've heard about on the Today Show, then you may not have been paying attention to Ukraine. Zelensky has been solidifying complete control over Ukraine for a long time, since long before the Russian invasion and the war. So how should we as Americans assess this? Well, first and most obviously by admitting this is authoritarianism, it's not democracy. And then second, by acknowledging that actually it's pretty common around the world. All Americans should care about is what happens here in the United States. The United States is, despite the fact it's also a bumper sticker, doesn't make it untrue, is a beacon of hope and freedom to the rest of the world.
You know, it's always interesting when Fox News pundits try to sweep under the rug all of the things that make many countries, if not a majority of countries around the rest of the world, not trust the United States because of how we go about doing our thing, because of how we handle business, because of how we maintain our control over resources, trade routes, access to this, access to that, how we pump up our military industrial complex continuously, the petrodollar, all of those things. So before I get more into it, let's just read off, from some of a list of the countries that the CIA has overthrown in terms of changing the governmental regimes or attempted to do so. We got Iran, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Syria, Egypt, Indonesia, British Guyana, Iraq, North Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Ecuador, Congo, Brazil, Dominican Republic, Cuba, Bolivia, Ghana, Angola. I could go on and on and on with this, but I think we all get the point. And it's really important to point that out because, when we talk about, conflict happening in foreign countries and our involvement in the conflict or just world and foreign involvement and whatever that conflict may be, we always like to position ourselves like we're the saints and we come in and we just come to the rescue and ride in to save the day. When clearly, at the end of the day, it's a game of power.
How do we maintain that inspiring position? Not simply by sending people missiles, but by remaining free ourselves. The United States cannot be a beacon of freedom, of light in the world, if we are not free. And with that concern in mind, you should be very worried by your leader's response to what's happening in Ukraine, the growing dictatorship there. And that's the word for it.
Now, clearly, the other non-ironic thing about this is while, we pretend that, we're the champions for democracy worldwide, the Republican Party is actively making it more and more difficult for anybody to not vote for them, especially people in key areas who live in economic situations and the color of their skin dictating where their votes will go. Hundreds of bills have been proposed nationwide on a state level and federally. And then at the same time, they pretend like, oh, America's this beacon for education and hope while we again continuously try to bury the realities of institutional racism in this country. Just take a look at Florida and what they're doing in terms of changing around their corporate diversity training. So, of course, it's just a complete oxymoron.
And again, on one level, you can understand why people are whipped into an emotional frenzy when they talk about Ukraine. Why wouldn't they be? Russia's invasion of Ukraine was shocking. It was wrong. The suffering of civilians there is entirely real. We're watching it on TV. It's horrifying. Just because what Russia has done in Ukraine was wrong doesn't mean you have to lie about the Ukrainian government. In fact, if you really cared about the Ukrainian people and all the people you just saw on TV, we care so much, you wouldn't want them to live under a dictator. So you'd be highly upset about what Zelensky just did.
And of course, Zelensky ousting 11 political parties is definitely a cause for concern and something that shouldn't be taking place in terms of considering Ukraine a democracy. However, using the United States as just this pure beacon of an example is just ridiculous. And, of course, he, raised concern about how Zelensky was compared to George Washington. Because, of course, George Washington, the slave-owning land thief who, helped form this country, what were they taking it from? Who were they taking it from? How was this nation built? You can't sweep that type of stuff under the rug because when you do, it doesn't really allow for any proper introspection. You don't have to go back hundreds of years to see the types of things that the United States does that the rest of the world looks at us for clearly. The police violence that we have, the mass shootings that we have, the ever growing cost of living with stagnant wages. We have serious issues. People are going to countries like Canada and places in the EU because their ability to climb the social ladder, the economic ladder, is much stronger in other countries, or becoming stronger in other countries than it is here. So, much of the rest of the world really knows what's up. Unfortunately, tens of millions of Americans in this country blindly believe that America is God's chosen country.